At this time, the chair recognizes Councilman Oh, who will present a resolution urging the United States Department of Defense to include the names of the 74 fallen sailors of the United States USS Frank E. Evans on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. With Tom Corcoran, Suzanne Messler, and those accompanying them, please join the councilman at the podium. And joining Councilman O, we have Councilman Jones, Councilman Heenan, and Councilman Dom, and Councilwoman Parker, and Councilwoman Kiona Sanchez.
Thank you very much, Council President. As we gather, I'd just like to state that we did a flag raising. We raised the family flag, the flag that draped the body of Seaman Patrick M. Corcoran. That is the only object the family has to remember their son and their brother, because he and 73 sailors perished when their destroyer was cut in two by an Australian aircraft carrier. They had shelled Da Nang. They were ordered out of the perimeter. They reloaded, but the accident occurred outside of the war zone. Therefore, their names are not on the wall of those who were killed during the Vietnam War. That flag is flying, and it will be returned to the family later today. At this time, I'd like to present this resolution, and I'm joined by my council colleagues and the family of Patrick Corcoran, as well as friends of the family who I asked to join us afterwards when we take a picture. This is a resolution urging the United States Department of Defense to include the names of the 74 fallen sailors of the USS Frank E. Evans on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, including Philadelphia native Patrick Michael Corcoran.
Whereas a Philadelphia native kid, Patrick A. Corcoran, remembered as a typical Irish Catholic Philly kid, graduated from Father Judge High School in 1968. Concerned by the threat of the United States Army draft and the harrowing death toll of the Vietnam War, Corcoran joined the United States Navy, and whereas Corcoran served for several months aboard the USS Frank E. Evans, which had already collected 4 battle stars for action during the Vietnam War, and
whereas on March 29, 1969, the officers and men of the USS Frank E. Evans departed Long Beach, California, towards Vietnam for the Western Pacific deployment with the United States Navy to carry out the operational orders of their Commander-in-Chief. And whereas on June 3, 1969, the USS Frank E. Evans, while on an Allied naval exercise, collided with the Australian aircraft carrier HMAS Melbourne in the South China Sea near the coast of Vietnam. And whereas the collision took the lives of 74 American sailors within a year after his high school graduation, Patrick Corcoran was one of the casualties. And
whereas members of the United States Armed Forces who died during the Vietnam War have been memorialized by having their names engraved on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. And whereas the Department of Defense, despite the favorable endorsement of the Department of Navy that the names be added to the wall in Washington, continues to falsely maintain that the men who died aboard the USS Frank E. Evans do not meet the criteria for inclusion of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial because of the accident occurred outside of the combat zone, when in fact the ship and every other American ship in the vicinity was awarded a Vietnam Service Medal on that day of the very accident. And
whereas the Vietnam War's combat zone boundaries, which were ill-defined and changed from time to time, talk about a moving target, should not be applied to exclude the names of the lost sailors from the memorial because other members of the United States Armed Forces who died outside the designated Vietnam War combat zone have had their names placed on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. And whereas the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington still does not recognize Philadelphia's own Patrick Corcoran and his 73 shipmates, 5 of whom were from Pennsylvania. Yet the Philadelphia Vietnam Veterans Memorial lists Corcoran as a casualty, as many state and city Vietnam veteran memorials include this group of fallen American sailors and heroes. And
whereas the USS Frank E. Evans Association and Patrick Corcoran's family have petitioned the Department of Defense for decades to have the names of the 74 sailors inscribed on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. Philadelphia City Council adopted Resolution 140660, introduced by Councilman Dennis O'Brien and Councilman David Oh on September 18, 2014, urging the United States Department of Defense to include the names of the 74 fallen sailors of the destroyer USS Frank E. Evans on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. The United States House of Representatives also passed a resolution in 2014 urging the inclusion of the names on the memorial, and the veterans of foreign wars passed a similar measure at the National Convention. Now therefore be it
resolved by the Council of the City of Philadelphia that we urge the United States Department of Defense to include the names of the 74 fallen sailors of the USS Frank E. Evans on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, including Philadelphia native Patrick Michael Corcoran. Further resolved that an engrossed copy of this resolution be presented to Thomas Corcoran, Patrick Corcoran's brother, evidencing the sincere admiration of this and respect of this legislative body. Thank you very much.
And the chair recognizes Mr. Corcoran for remarks.
Thank you, Council President. Joining us is the sister as well, Suzanne Corcoran, and I would like to point out that our Executive Director, Scott Brown of the Philadelphia Veterans Advisory Commission is here, along with Joe Griffiths, a veterans advocate and radio show host. And just point out that today is the Navy's 241st birthday. All right.
All right. Happy birthday.
Good morning. This has been an absolute humbling morning for my sister and I and our entire family who is here joining us. This has been quite a ride. It's been 47 years since the accident occurred. There's been a lot of trials and tribulations in trying to get Patrick's name and the 73 sailors on the wall in Vietnam. And my sister and I would just like to thank each and every one of you for making this such a great day for us. Also for putting this resolution together to try to get Patrick Corcoran's name, along with the 73 other sailors, onto the wall in Vietnam. I wholeheartedly, my sister also, want to thank each and every one of you individually. We would like to do that, but thank you again for making this possible. My dad and my mother, who aren't here today with us, they must be above us right now, just smiling down. So thank you again for making this such a great day, and for making it such an honorable day for Patrick Corcoran and those 73 sailors aboard the Frank E. Evans.
Councilor David Oh.
Friends, please come up and join us for this photograph. Thank you.